Now in this next graph, we are going to dismantle a myth about how food prices have been facing hyperinflation and people cannot afford food. The problem lies both in how they measure what is food, how they don't notice that they keep upgrading the caliber of food they eat. They also don't notice how much they overpay for processed food and junk food, which is a terrible thing because you're paying more and you're eating something that is a slow-acting poison as well. And the general victim mentality associated with people who like to pretend that inflation is much higher than it is. So this chart is from the USDA, and as you can see, there are three lines here. The vertical axis is percentage of disposable personal income, and this is time 1960 to present. Food consumed at home has fallen by a tremendous amount, from 14% of disposable personal income to about 5%, and there's a very small uptick here, but that's an uptick from the all-time low up to what it was in about 2013. Fine. What is interesting here is how the portion of all food consumed is now comprised of food away from home to a much greater extent, which is eating in restaurants, etc. Eating in restaurants was a luxury good, and in 1960 it was only 1/5 of all dollars spent, because this light blue line plus dark blue line combined is this orange line of total food. So not only has total food been going down, but this masks how much of a luxury choice people are making in eating away from home. Eating at restaurants is always going to be more expensive than cooking at home because you are supporting the salaries of all the staff over there. So in discussing inflation, people are not measuring a fixed basket of goods, but they are masking this luxury choice of eating more away from home as the cost of food in order to complain about, oh, food prices are so high. That, of course, is inaccurate. It is not right to measure inflation of necessities by bundling luxury choices and discretionary upgrade spending into that. On top of that, food at home also masks a lot of processed and junk food, which necessarily is always going to be more expensive and rise at a higher price. Why does processed food and junk food increase in price at a greater rate than whole food, ingredients that you would make food from scratch? It's because processed food has to support the salaries of food scientists designed to make things like Doritos and Cheetos more addictive, ad campaigns, all those fast food ads you see on television, and marketing directors deciding what demographic to target or how to tweak a certain burger or a certain type of Mexican food item at Taco Bell or things like that. These are highly educated people, and it's unfortunate that they have chosen to devote their careers to something that is not improving the human condition, but these are well-paying jobs that are generally recession-proof. So in fact, from an employment perspective, these are desirable jobs to have. I did my MBA from the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, and a fair number of my classmates actually went to work in branded processed food. And that was a big track of employment. These were all nice people and still are. But yeah, they chose to work in packaging non-food substances as food, full of artificial flavors and all kinds of chemicals. And that, unfortunately, is a machine in which they are a cog. But food at home has fallen by such an amount that this is deflation. Just like we have seen elsewhere on this channel, energy prices continuing to shrink as a percentage of household income. Now, a lot of conservatives like to tout not just food as the entirety of inflation, but they always use an anecdotal example rather than a chart like this, and they always use some extremely unhealthy fast food. They will use carbonated beverages like Coca-Cola and Pepsi, or a Big Mac, or Doritos, and they failed all tests of Kartik's law of inflation, which you can see in the tag in the upper right-hand corner over here. And they think that saying that Doritos were $2 a bag 30 years ago and now they're $6 a bag and therefore we have suffered endless hyperinflation is somehow a good counterpoint to my data-driven proof that inflation is not nearly as high as they claim it to be. They shouldn't be eating Doritos at all, given how unhealthy that is. And because Doritos have to support a lot of highly paid people, that is why the price of that rises at a greater rate than the price of anything that would be a component of a salad you'd make at home, for example. And what's even worse is that cooking skills are declining, even though it's been easier than ever to learn how to cook on YouTube. Any recipe from any part of the world, you will see multiple videos of how to do it from a point of view video perspective, which is very easy to learn, much easier than cookbooks that existed in the old days. And you can watch multiple videos because you learn the fastest and the best when you have multiple teachers. Despite the availability of all this wonderful information, people feel that they cannot cook at home and therefore they have to eat out more often. Cooking skills went away even as access to this knowledge became more commoditized. That's like saying literacy went down because public libraries became available. But sadly, that is true. However, for those who derive their opinions from solid data, you can see that food at home going down is in fact proof of rising standards of living. If you were to eat what your great-grandparents would consider a pretty good meal that they would cook at home because they did not eat in restaurants very often, if you go back even further than 1960 to the time of your great-grandparents, and they did not have processed foods with things like maltodextrin and high fructose corn syrup in them, what they would consider a very good meal is something you can purchase the ingredients of for a very low price. In fact, the price of fruits and vegetables in general has not risen in about 30 years, and the price of eggs, as I have demonstrated often on this channel, has only risen less than 2% a year for the last 40 years. It's very inexpensive, and has shrunk as a percentage of disposable personal income. Thanks for watching.